Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. Let me begin with a prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhatrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Datri Swaha Swada Namostute Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine व्योमवत्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम्. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone for today's session. I'm very happy to welcome back Sri Sundar Rajanji. We had a very interesting session on meditation and how the metaphor of Tesla can be used to understand meditation. And during the last time he was here, and he will be continuing his discussion on meditation today. The topic he will discuss is why meditation is difficult from Arjuna to the modern mind. Again, very interesting topic. I'm sure all the listeners of this podcast will deeply benefit from it. Very warm welcome to Sundarji. Thank you very much for making time for this session. To give a brief introduction, Sundar Rajan is a technologist, project management leader, and a writer known for his ability to bring clarity to complex systems, both technical and contemplative. He has provided thought leadership in methodology, databases, architecture, and enterprise planning across multi-million dollar public sector initiatives. With decades of experience in large-scale technology delivery, he pairs analytical depth with long-standing exposure to Advaita Vedānta and contemplative practices. Sundar has published in industry journals, spoken at international technology conferences, and currently leads the PMI Technology Forum in Sacramento. His recent work bridges AI and meditation, exploring how modern tools can shed light on ancient inquiry. Again, thank you, Sundarji, for making time for the session. Please go ahead and start your session. Viewers, if you have any questions, put it in Q&A box. And towards the end of the session, last 5 or 10 minutes, Sundarji will take some of them. Sundarji, please go ahead.
Okay, so I guess everybody is able to see me. I'm just, hang on one second. Let me make sure that the video is visible. Okay, everybody's able to see me. That's great. So I can start. So first thing, thank you very much for the very nice introduction, Nitinji. And, I really want to thank everybody who's attending, because it's just coming back from a long Christmas, New Year break for a lot of you. And being able to make this, it's very nice of all of you to be able to make it. So what I'm going to do is, just like Nitinji did, is to start with a prayer. And I'm going to share a prayer. Actually, I got it as a few pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share those pictures one by one, and then go from there. So let me just bring it up. Those pictures. Very much for narrating the prayer mantra. In fact, I'm going to repeat it, but this time with a little picture. Sadasiva Samarambam Sankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. So that is the first prayer mantra, and then I got just a couple more. One from my trip to, we went to Kashi about a month ago. So this is still fresh in my mind. So I wanted to bring up that Kashi Vishwanath prayer. It's a very small one, of course. I'm sharing it here, and hopefully you can see it. Gangadharang Ramaniya Jarapalagam Gauri Naranjara Vivachita Vamabhagam Narayanam Priyamanankam Hadapaharam Varanasi Puraparam Bhajabhaspanagam. So it's a very simple prayer, but again, you can see it's the Ganga Dwara entrance to the Kashi Vishwanath temple in late evening. So, and finally, in the last one, which will tie up with our session here, hopefully, is I'll just bring it up, and then we can get into the main session. So this one is let me just bring it up and make sure that everybody is able to see is the picture here. Okay, you're able to see everybody, Nitinji? Or able to see, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Oh, good.
we are able to see. Yeah.
Okay. So, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rurani Mayaya. So, this is, of course, from the Bhagavad Gita, but it ties sort of nicely into the theme of this today's talk because and also the Sanskrit in this particular mantra is pretty, a sloka is, relatively easy to understand. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati, meaning, Ishvara resides in the heart of all beings. Arjuna, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. So he resides in the heart of all beings. So, and that, interestingly enough, is really the theme of, the whole aspect of the spiritual path or the spiritual aspects of meditation, right? Really, if you think about it, it's really to bring up the divinity in you, or being able to feel the divinity in you is why the spiritual aspects of the meditations are being practiced, right? I mean, I'm again, like we discussed last time, I'm differentiating it from the secular like the app meditation or gym meditation and all that, because that's not the focus of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and so on. So the experience of the divinity within you is really the theme for the so the slide deck, let me bring it up again. Slide deck. Okay. So the slides are also seen by folks. Is that correct?
Can you put it in full screen mode?
Let me see how to do that. So one second, I'm trying to figure out how to put it in full screen mode. You're talking about the slides, or?
Yeah, slide. You just put it in slideshow mode in the PPT.
Oh, okay. Okay, one second. I'm just navigating that screen. Okay, thanks. Here it is. So, how about now? Is it all good?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So I think if you had missed what I said, it was only there wasn't much. Just basically, I was saying that the second chapter Gita. I mean, this not the second chapter. The Gita verse Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. It ties into this theme of the meditation topic here. So anyway, so this is the first. I'm showing the PowerPoint slides here, and what do Arjuna and Yuval Harari have in common? This actually. I wrote as a blog post or an article in Advaita L group a few months ago, and basically the topic was basically what do they have in common, and of course I didn't have this sub bullet there, why meditation is so hard. I just left it there, right? I mean, basically, what do Arjuna and Yuval Harari have in common? On the surface, really, it should be nothing, because Yuval Harari, we'll see in a second who he is, but Arjuna, everybody knows. They are separated by almost 3,000 years, and there's nothing in common between the two, right? So that goes to this slide, which is in Tamil. There is I don't know how many people here know the Tamil, but I can explain it. ஏன் மொட்டை தலைக்கும் முழங்காலுக்கும் முடிச்சு போடுகிறது. Basically, that's a proverb. That's actually like a criticizing proverb, saying that why are you trying to tie a knot between a bald head and a knee, right? Because both the bald head and the knee have one common characteristic, which is they are a little smooth, right? So basically, what it's saying is sarcastically saying there is no connection between the two. Why are you bringing this up, right? That means there's nothing common between those. It's like comparing apples to oranges. So basically, here comparing an epic warrior from 3,000, 2,500 plus years, not even in the time frame that we are familiar with, to a best-selling historian is very strange, right? But that's what we are going to look at. There is a common thread between the two, and that's really going to be the theme for our talk today. So what's the theme? We all know that Arjuna, complained to Krishna in the 6th chapter of the Gita that, he couldn't control the mind. He felt that it was like more difficult than controlling the wind, right? So meditation, right? We all know this. The instructions are simple. The execution is not. So the how-to is very easy. Sit down, observe your breath, or chant a mantra, or anything. We all know the different techniques for meditation. Like the transcendental meditation hinges on chanting a mantra. Mindfulness hinges on being able to be aware of and things around you and being able to observe that. And then things like art of living and other techniques which rely on breath, they basically say sit down, watch your breath, turn inward, right? But then once you start doing that, then the mind throws a massive party, and we are all aware of that. And this is showing like thousands of thoughts or hundreds of thoughts going in your mind. So that is a fundamental truth, that mastering the external world as a warrior, he was a supremely efficient warrior, or in the case of historian Yuval Harari, provides zero guarantees for being able to perform in the inner world, right? For achieving inner stillness. So meditation is a great leveler, and that's something to keep in mind. That that sort of a discordance is something to keep in mind as we navigate through this session here. So we know about, again, just to reiterate on Arjuna, he was a master of the battlefield. He was a highly decorated warrior. And even from childhood, he was extremely disciplined in archery and so on. We all know about the stories, or the epic Mahabharata, and how Arjuna is portrayed, right? And he was a pinnacle of focus in terms of sensory control, physical discipline, and being able to stay on the battlefield and perform, right? So he was the perfect candidate for mastering the mind in theory, because he had all those other qualities, right? So we come to this obvious, the case study one. He has mastery of archery and warfare and strategy, but in the 6th chapter, in the famous verse in the 6th chapter, he basically says he is not, to subdue the mind is as difficult as controlling the wind, right? So that was his confession. So again, just to quickly go over that, if people are not familiar with it, Sanchalam Himana Krishna Pramati Balavadridam. That was the verse from the 6th chapter, where it basically the slide deck really explains. Sanchalam means restless, Dhrudam means obstinate, Pramati means turbulent, and Balavat means powerful and strong, right? So, by the way, these visuals, while I'm there, I mentioned last time that my whole sort of journey in this Tesla equals dhyana and the meditation is sort of like a Triveni Sangamam. It's got three things. One is philosophy, the other is technology, and the third is autobiographical, right? Like last time I went through some autobiographical or my personal narrative about how I got to the meditative path. So but this slide deck, so just look at the graphics, right? So so that I want to mention the technology piece. This is done using Google Gemini, and I didn't do anything. I just created my details of my article and let it do its thing. It can create slides, and just look at the quality of it. This is, I mean, even if I spend time and money or whatever, I would never be able to get the kind of graphical clarity it brings. And with literally, I mean, I have to say, like, probably like 2 minutes of effort, I just put my article into Google Gemini and it creates this slide. So I'm giving away my trade secret, but again, like I said last time, so we'll have the third leg, the technology leg, which is like the backbone of what I'm doing anyway. So I want people to take a look at it and maybe benefit from it, because I think it's a great tool, and there are other tools like this. This is Google Gemini. So again, this is just a repetition of what we saw. Sanchalam, the terms, it's worth noting. Sanchalam, Dridam, Pramati, Balavat, right? Sanchalam. So those things is basically saying, or the reason why he's not able to control the mind. Now, case study number 2. Now we come to the modern, the 21st century historian, right? For those of you who don't know, Yuval Harari is a world famous historian. He's written, um, um, of course, new bestsellers, but more important, they are like *Sapiens* is considered to be by many people one of the best books they ever read in their life, right? He is just unbelievably great in synthesizing complex information, and *Sapiens* is a sort of a new kind of history that he took a totally different approach to writing on history, and that book is a massive bestseller. But here is just like Arjuna. So this we come to this analogous part that he also makes a striking admission, right? My intellectual training didn't help in meditation. In fact, it made it harder, right? So here I'm going to pause for a quick second, and I want to really we want to hear from um, Harari, and it's extremely short, by the way. The whole video itself is only 1 minute, and I'm going to only play like 25 seconds of it because that's all we need for our session. So, I mean, right here. So let me share Harari, and I'll bring it up. Oh, and one main thing is I have to make sure a sound is.
Just see what is actually happening. You know, and it starts with the simplest things, like you start by observing your breath coming in. And it's an incredibly difficult, breath coming in and out of your nostrils. And it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I remember I went to my...
just focus on that.
Yeah, I was doing my PhD at Oxford. I thought I really was a very intelligent person and that I'm in control of my mind, that I know myself. And I saw I don't have even this basic ability to observe like the simplest thing in the world, which is my breath, without my mind wandering away to some fantasy. So what chance do I have to really get to know the deep sources of my psychological structures, or to understand the economic system or the political system, if I can't observe the reality of my own breath?
Sundarji, we are not able to hear you. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. I think it's something is happening when I play the video. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
With the simplest things.
So we just because it's such a small segment, is worth hearing again.
It starts with the simplest things, like you start by observing your breath coming in and out of your nostrils, and it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I remember I went to my...
just focus on that.
Yeah, I was doing my PhD at Oxford. I thought I really was a very intelligent person and that I'm in control of my mind, that I know myself. And I saw I don't have even this basic ability to observe like the simplest thing in the world, which is my breath, without my mind wandering away to some fantasy. So what chance do I have to really get to know the deep sources of my psychological structures, or to understand the economic system or the political system, if I can't observe the reality of my own breath?
So going back to my slides. So basically, you heard him say, right? Basically, so I just wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, right? He said, my intellectual training didn't help in meditation. In fact, made it harder. He talks about how being a PhD in Oxford and being, accomplished in what he was doing was going to help, but didn't. So that basically, re-emphasizes where we are going with this. So Who is Harari? Let's go back once. I thought I had a slide about Harari, but anyway, if not, we can go through this and explain. So he was doing PhD in Oxford at the time, but like we mentioned before, he's an author of world famous books, and is highly regarded as somebody who can explain the complex things around us, especially in the world of AI and all. He is one of the go-to people, right, in terms of explaining the AI and its impact on on the humans and so on, right? So anyway, so we heard him say, just basically repeating what Arjuna said, but 3,000 years later, right? So this slide, it talks about how the tool itself becomes the cage, meaning the intellectual work is building analysis, narratives, telling stories about reality and all that. In this case, in Harari's case, he was a follower of Vipassana. I don't know when it happened, but it was at some stage in his career. Let me just go back to the slide. Can you see now? So I think, yeah, basically, I think I was going over.
Did you share a slideshow? Because we are not seeing it.
Oh, okay.
You have to share the screen with the slideshow again.
Oh, okay. So once again, I'll make sure that. Yeah, that's the problem between toggling between different screens, right? Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So slideshow, here it is. Yeah, I got to be careful with the. When I toggle. Okay, now I'm able to. You should be able to see because I'm.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So basically, yeah, we haven't missed much because in terms of what we're just going over, what we already know from the description of him being a historian and world-renowned scholar on basically AI and stuff. So when the tool becomes the cage, so the intellectual work is all about analysis, building narratives, analyzing patterns, and all that, and then telling stories about reality. Whereas meditation, in this case, like I was saying, Harari was become a follower of Vipassana, and which is the Buddhist mindfulness technique of meditation, and it focuses on observing reality as is without the stories, right? So what the slide says is when the mental muscles that were strengthened for academic success actually were detrimental for non-judgmental observation. That's really what he was saying. That for someone who can juggle complex global histories, he said that just observing his breath was incredibly difficult even for 10 seconds. Okay. So again, it's sort of going over the same thing. My academic training didn't help. In fact, it made it harder, and it's emphasizing the same thing. So here we come to what's the reason or what's the problem or this is the crux of this today's session, right? So I've established that both in the case of Arjuna and in the case of Harari, both of them highly accomplished, found meditation difficult. And in the last session, I also talked about how a highly functional, superlative women couldn't, for the life of her, get to do meditation. So what's the reason for this, right? So this is interesting. This is not something which, for some reason, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the people who talk about meditation, and I see books and videos and all that, they don't seem to come to this particular. This is a classic Upanishad mantra, which pretty much defines it like 100%. What's the reason, right? So this is a famous mantra, and this is one of those I know by I know by memory. I really like this mantra, so I'm going to repeat it. Paranchikani vritrunat swayambhu tasmat paran pashyati na antaratman. Again, I'll say it one more time. Paranchikani vritrunat swayambhu tasmat paran pashyati na antaratman. So the Sanskrit verse is right there in the middle of the slide, and like the other one we saw from the Bhagavad Gītā, this is also surprisingly fairly straightforward mantra. It says, Paranchikani. So Swayambhu, we all know, Swayambhu means self-existent, right? So it refers to the self-existent Lord, right? Swayambhu. They basically maimed it, like butchered the senses. I'm sorry to use the word, but they maimed it. That's really the term for Vyatranat means like not destroying it, but maiming it, like, basically making it bad, right? So the Swayambhu, the Lord, pierced the openings, that is the Kani, the ones that go outside, and then maimed it so that everybody looks outward and not within, right? Na antaratma, they don't look within. Paran pashyati means, looking outward. So paranchi kani means the openings. Viratranat means like, basically maimed it. Who did that? Swayambhu, the self-existent Lord. And therefore, tasmat, paran pashyati. Paran pashyati means we all look outward, na antaratma, not within oneself. So this is what whenever anybody thinks of meditation, or I think this should be in the back of the mind. Meaning, this is so crucial to understand the whole psychology and the architecture of meditation. Meaning, there is something that is like a system setting, a default setting amongst us humans, that basically is geared towards outward facing. So when you're trying to do an inner journey like meditation, you're going to have problems because it's not your fault. It's just that the mantra basically says the self-existent Lord, Ishvara, Swayambhu means, the Lord, basically, made it such that the senses are outward facing. So therefore, one looks outward and not within, right? So this is a statement about our fundamental design, right? So basically our awareness naturally flows outward through our sensory organs, and to turn against it and go inward is a fight against our very wiring. It's almost like swimming upstream. So once we get a hang of, once we understand this, some of the things I think makes more sense why we are finding the difficulty. So again, this I'm going to upload these slides, or actually Nitinji is going to be having access to this slide. So I've got a little bit of repetition here, so I won't go into that. But this is basically saying that all these senses are going out. You can see here the ear and the eyes and everything is going out. So the inner journey is not easy because the openings are only for the outside and not for the inner passage, so to speak. Okay. So paranchikani vetruna swayambhu tasmat paran pashyatin antaratman. So here again, so I'm going to go back to the video from Harari, because there is a few things he talks about, and that is relevant to our discussion here. And more important is, one thing I want to mention is, even in this tiny 1-minute video where Harari talks in 60 minutes, it's not a forum of Vedanta or anything, that several things he says there's almost a one-to-one mapping with the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So what I'm trying to say is that some of the things that, even though people following other meditative paths may come up with and discuss, it's all like the Patanjali Yoga Sutras pretty much defines all kinds of meditation, and not just the Vedantic ones. So I'm going to go back again. It's a bit tricky when we have to play the video, but it's important. So I'm going to go back and put the video there, because we want to go to the beginning where he talks about some of the stuff.
Yes, I start my day when I wake up.
So let's do this one time, and so let me see. Okay.
Do you meditate every day?
Yes, I start.
So if I share this, we should get the sound, hopefully. Just give me a second, Nitin. I brought it up.
Do you meditate every day?
I have to just bring it up to, I got to share it.
Is it a video?
It's the same thing. It's the same video, but yeah, I'm sharing. Okay, sorry. I got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you meditate every day?
Yes, I start my day when I wake up in the morning. So the first thing I do, I meditate for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime...
A full hour?
A full hour.
Wow.
And then sometime in the afternoon, I'll meditate another hour.
For you, what is meditation done? Why is it worth 2 hours a day?
On one level is to get in touch with reality. The mind constantly produces these stories about myself, about society, about the world, and they constantly come between me and reality. And meditation is about learning how to let go of these stories and just see what is actually happening. And it starts with the simplest things, like you start by observing your breath coming in and out of your nostrils. And it's an incredible...
So I'm going to go back to the slide deck. I think and I'm making sure that I'm not muted. Okay, that's good. So now we can continue, because I just want to bring that up because that's got significance. So if you, it was only like 40 seconds or 50 seconds of what he spoke. What he says is that he says that he wants to make sure that at other times he says that the mind is actually identifying the modifications of the mind with this surupyam itaranta. This is Yoga Sutra 1.4, and that he mentions in the context of just in the narrative, the English narrative. He doesn't mention obviously Yoga Sutras, but you can interpret that, right? And then the other thing, just one more thing he talks about is, let me see. Yeah. So the other thing he talked about was how he was meditating for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, 2 hours, right? So all that maps into Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. There is a famous verse in Yoga Sutra which talks about how the practice is established, and it is through Dirghakala, long time, and then Nairantriya, without interruption. So in this case, in Harari, you see 2 hours of meditation every day, Satkara, with sincerity. So he basically, obviously his sincerity is, we don't have to, he's established that. So I'm going with this is, even though it's a talk in a a forum like 60 minutes, still, if you dig into it, you see there's a direct tie into the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So the Yoga Sutras are like the basis of the psychology or the architecture of meditation. Whatever path you follow, whatever kind of meditation you follow, the Yoga Sutra still comes into play. So anyway, so those are a couple of things from his talk that actually maps into Yoga Sutras. Okay, now coming to there was a little bit of a diversion, but again, coming back to how is it that somebody like Arjuna or in the case of Harari are able to concentrate superbly in their work. And it's true for every one of us, right? When we have to earn a living and we have to on our work, we find it easy to focus, right? Or we find it easy to focus in a movie and so on. So the concentration, right, is basically like the Kathopanishad said, it's to do with the outward flow of the senses. It's like the river which automatically flows. So one of the examples, you can see at the bottom of the slide I have is Sachin Tendulkar. If you Google, there's a little article on being in the zone where Sachin says that even if there is 90,000 people yelling and all that, and he enters the arena, it becomes completely silent for him. None of that really matters to him. Once he takes God and starts playing, he is able to completely ignore or all of that and be in the zone and focus, right? So obviously that's the only reason why somebody can even score that many runs and be successful in especially in India with so much crowd pressure and all that in the stadium and outside as well, right? With so much of media and all that. So it's concentration. So this is just we all know this, that concentration happens naturally whether you're going to a movie or at your work, or in the case of sports stars like Sachin Tendulkar, right? Now, meditation here is on the right. It works against the outward flow, right? It's the withdrawal of senses. So if you look at the Patanjali's eightfold path, yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara. Pratyahara is the fourth one, right? In the scheme of things, it's the withdrawal of senses to turn awareness back on itself. Now, withdrawing the senses, so that is like turning a lantern around to see the flame. This is an example that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used quite effectively. He used to say that turning the mind inward is like turning a lantern around to see the flame itself. rather than what it eliminates, because the lantern is meant to eliminate outside things, right? So, so that's the difference between concentration and meditation. So the outward concentration, again, this slide shows that the mind's natural outward flow, paranchikani, continues. An athlete in the zone, like Tendulkar or a coder, right, deep in a problem, they naturally have it. I mean, you don't even have to teach them anything, because especially when you're eking out a living and something is related to your getting your livelihood, you will be completely focused. It's not that hard, or people don't have a problem with that. Where there has a problem is in this pratyahara, inward withdrawal. It's on the right side of the slide. So this is the first step of true meditation. So basically, we are trying to consciously withdraw the senses from the objects to which they naturally flow. And this work of reversing the current to see the source, like the lantern, directing itself onto the flame, or swimming upstream, these are unnatural, right? So the same verse, right? It says that paranchikani yatruna swayambhu tasmat paran paschidinantara atman kaschit dhira pratyagatma namaikshat avrutta chakshus amurdatva vichan. Basically, one who desires higher goals, avrutta chakshu is able to turn inward. Amurdatva vichan, one who desires immortality, right? So that's the second part of it. Kaschit dhiraha, the person who is a dhira, meaning who is basically a courageous seeker. Here, this called, the Buddhists use the term courageous to denote somebody who is actually able to turn their mind inward. So this particular sentence here, desiring immortality, right? Amritatvam ichan, they turn the gaze inwards. Avrita chakshuhu, and behold the self, right? So this is the second part of it. So it's not like the Upanishad just stops with giving a diagnosis. It also provides a sort of a solution, not exactly a complete solution, but it narrates somebody who is able to do that, right? Somebody who is courageous and is able to turn their mind inwards by desiring for immortality. In this case, of course, it talks about amritatvam, means immortality, but basically a higher goal, right? So the exception of somebody, the dhira who turns inward, is when all the outside things are going around like that, they turn their mind inward by courageously, by grit, dhriti, right? So this is what the second part of the verse talks about. And how do you do that in the yoga scheme of things? This is the famous verse that describes the one that Harari starts off saying, right? I meditate for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and so on. So this is the famous verse, or the famous Yoga Sutra verse that describes that whole process, right? The practice, what the dhira does is a practice. Abhyasa is the name of that Yoga Sutra uses. So how is it done? Satu dirga kala nairantarya satkara adhara asavito drida bhumihi. So basically, drida bhumi means you're established in that meditative path, meaning you gravitate past pratyahara, right? Yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara. You go beyond that into dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. That's the sort of drida bhumi, meaning established in that. Bhumi means like a place or a land, but in this context, it means being established in a particular state, right? So drida bhumi, how is it done? Satu dirga kala, when it is done for a long time. Nairantarya, meaning without break, constantly, right? Asavito, you're basically doing it with reverence or devotion. So then you reach there. So Satu dirga kala nairantarya satkara adhara asavito drida bhumihi, meaning you're established. Drida means strongly, bhumi means in this case, of course, bhumi means not land or earth, but means a state, a yogic state. So that's the gist of this the Yoga Sutra, correlating what Harari mentioned in that 60 minutes interview, right? So same thing here. Dirga kala nairantarya satkara sevita, meaning devotion and sincerity. So we already saw this. So we know that we went through this. So basically, the 2 hours and continuous practice, right? So then, if you recollect, the reason I played the video was he was talking about why he is doing it, and when Anderson Cooper asked him, "Why are you doing it?" He says, "I want to see the reality, not just the stories the mind spins about it, right? So not the stories about the mind spins about the world." So again, so this is going back to how even a casual sentence in a media by somebody talking about meditation still maps beautifully into Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, right? So look at this. When the mental chapter vritti stop, the sphere rests in its own nature. Surupe avasthanam. That's the term that Patanjali uses to Harari is talking about. I want to see reality, right? And so Harari's aim. Let's get into the stories and see what is actually happening. That actually maps to a Patanjali Yoga Sutra, right? I mean, Surupe Avasthana 1.3, and then the insight. So the insight you get by not, listening to the stories to see reality clearly is the verse 4.15, which is, which talks about that, right? So when the mental states are still, then the seer rests in his own fundamental nature, Surupe Avasthanam. So anyway, so that's again just going back to how the Yoga Sutras, even though they have seemingly may not have any connection to somebody talking about meditation in a casual sense, they still map to the any kind of meditation maps to the Yoga Sutra. So that's an interesting part of what I observed, and I want to sort of bring it up. Okay, so all right, so that I think is the gist of it. This I've actually come to the topic of basically why meditation is difficult, right? So basically, that's where the topic is. But obviously, we don't want to leave here, right? I mean, we don't want to leave at this stage with just the diagnosis alone. Just give me 1 second here. So we don't want to leave with the diagnosis alone. We still have about 10, 15 minutes. So we have to we definitely need to go into, is there a remedy for all this, right? So what is it that we need to do to get beyond the pratyahara and basically swim upstream or turn the lantern inside, right? So for that, I'm actually we got 5 minutes, so I put a placeholder, but I think since we have 5 minutes, I'm going to actually I can talk through this. Yeah. So the solution, there is two approaches that we can do, and I'm bringing up one of them, and this is from the Sringeri Acharya, not the current one, the previous one. He actually when people frame the question as to why I can't meditate, he actually brought up this very interesting analogy. Let me share this, and then we can go through this really quick. It's a tiny, it's not a long slides, it's a few slides, so I'll go through this. So he basically says, do you give somebody like a bunch of 100 rupee notes, right? 1 second, let me bring this up. And assume it's their salary and ask them to count those notes, right? Do they complain the same way about not being able to not being able to focus? So he brings up that question. So let me see why this is all playing games with me here. The PowerPoint, 1 second. Let me bring it up, and then I can share it. Okay, here it is. So I'm sharing this. All right. So this is from a book my guru wrote. This is a while back. It's from, I think it's called Sorrow to Bliss. But anyway, the main thing here is this little analogy that Acharya presents, right? So basically, to answer the question, why does the mind wander, right, when we want it to be still? So like I mentioned, we don't want to stop with just with the diagnosis. We want to at least look at some meaningful solutions. So a common complaint is controlling the mind is impossible. That's what most seekers say, right? So one of them approached Acharya. This is in the book. I think it's called From Sorrow to Bliss, and he basically says he gives this analogy. So he suggested that what if you actually give somebody a bunch of 100 rupee notes. Of course, it was in the 1980s. So now it may be whatever 500 rupee notes, and it happens to be their entire salary or earnings for a significant amount of time. And so he says that take a bundle of 100 rupee notes that represent your full month's salary, count them. The only instruction is do not make a mistake. Do not make a mistake. So that's the main instruction, right? So again, we put it in context. 100 rupees may not be much now. So think it of it as 500 rupees or 2,000 if it's still valid, right? So one of those higher numbers. But so Acharya says when somebody presented that issue that I can't meditate, he says that, okay, when somebody is given that kind of task to do, are they able to do it or not? So the answer is, of course, the person counts the money with absolute precision. Their mind does not even wander even for a moment, right, during the process. So the mind is capable of one-pointedness, absolutely, right? And when you in this case, Acharya says there should not be any error when it's emphasized to them, then you have total absorption. So it's just not just a little game here, but this is the reality, right? So basically, the same thing. If somebody is extremely busy counting a pack of notes, and a friend or somebody calls, they are completely lost in it, so they don't even listen. So it basically, just proving that the complete absorption is possible. And the reason for the attention is because any error in counting this would prove costly for me. So basically, if the mind can focus on something like this, why does it fail during meditation? And the Acharya basically says the reason is because you do not ascribe the same value, right? It's not a lack of capacity. We know that Tendulkar can battle 90,000 people screaming in the middle of Wankhede Stadium or whatever the stadium is, and still focus and play. And in the case of somebody counting these 500 rupee notes, they are able to do that and complete focus. So the ability is there. It's not the inability to meditate, but it's not a lack of capacity, it's a lack of value, right? So this is very important, because unless the value that meditation is ascribed a value is considered very important. So basically what the Acharya is saying is that if a spiritual aspirant regarded meditation as equally important, feeling that even a moment of mental wandering would be as costly as losing money, they would definitely succeed in meditation. So that's his contention, right? So that's really the gist of the whole analogy. So that's really the gist of it, right? So okay, let me stop there and go back to my slide deck. So the value, ascribing value to meditation is the fundamental reason why the mind is wandering. Meaning, if the value is not ascribed to meditation, it's not going to be able to focus, right? And so it's not like driving like sheep inside or something like that. In the case of meditation, it has to naturally happen, and it happens only when you have that kind of value. So let me go back. Am I still sharing, Nitinji?
Yes, I'm able to see the slide, this placeholder for rupee counting. Yeah.
Good. Let me go back to that, because I sort of lost it somewhere. Okay. I think, let me see. Yeah. Just give me a second. I'll go back to the slide and we can continue. Yeah. Here it is. Okay, got it. So that is. Let me just go back. Okay, here it is. So let me restart that, because it sort of went away. Okay, got it. I got it. I'm back on track. So this is a slide capturing the whole thing. The currency of concentration. The mind seems uncontrollable during meditation, and then basically the perceived value is the what is lacking, right? if it's salary or anything that is important to you, you have the ability to focus. So basically, the whole lesson from that dialogue with Acharya was that if you see the wandering mind as a costly loss, we would stop. We wouldn't be succeeding in meditation. So that's the gist of it. So this slide actually summarizes. And by the way, so this slide again, or this particular infographic generated by Google Gemini from the basically a couple of paragraphs of text. All right, so now we come to we're coming to the pretty much, I think we got only 5 minutes or so. So coming to the tail end of it. So I want to actually present, this is like counterintuitive. So I'm going to share with you this famous verse from Bhagavad Gītā, but nothing to do with meditation. Here, Krishna is chiding Arjuna that, how you get trapped in sense enjoyment, right? So he says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangaste Upajayate. And then he says, when you think about the objects, right? So you basically become attached to them. So Sanjayate kamaha kamat krodo bijayate. So basically, he's talking about the ladder of failure or ladder of fall, right? When you think about the objects of the senses, people develop attached to them, and because of the attachment, when you can't get the objects, they are, there is abstraction. Then your anger is born, right? So this is a famous verse. I think it's fairly well known, but I'm not using it in the context of meditation. I'm actually suggesting, what I'm bringing up is use it in the case. This is describing it in a negative way, meaning there's a fall if somebody keeps thinking of objects, right? And then that leads to desire for the objects, and that desire, when it's abstracted, comes up as anger, right? So here Shankara's commentary says you're not only just looking at or thinking of the objects, but you're looking at the special qualities of the objects, like how great it is and all that, right? So that's actually the ladder of fall. But I'm actually, suggesting using this in the ladder of fall, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, right? Basically, we are using hacking the ladder of fall to engineer the kind of commitment that Acharya was talking about, right? Like the importance, right? So basically, in the material world, if you're thinking about sensory objects, about wealth, pleasure, or ladies or whatever, then you become attached to them, and there's a craving, and then that leads to anger, right? But in the case of meditation, the same thing, right? But in the negative context, but use the same methodology. If you think about it, will work if you keep thinking of if you keep linking with things that are meditation related, right? The whole satsanga is all based on that. Reading books, listening to talks, thinking about benefits and value. If we constantly keep doing that mechanism, the same as with the attachment brings up desire, that is going to drive desire, and then you'll have commitment, right? Basically, there will be a positive addiction to the practice. So I hope people get it. But basically, I'm using the negative connotation of that famous Gita verse and showing the same things are relevant for building attachment or value in the meditative practice, right? And that's really how it is done. Even in bhakti, you would have heard that there are 9 kinds of bhakti, and it's all about shravanam and listening to, and basically thinking of the qualities of God and all that. Same thing here. If you associate yourself with satsangs that are meditation centric, or keep going to places or avenues which actually glorify meditation, then that importance slowly builds up, right? Nobody can actually psychoanalyze you to believing in that. It has to come as an organic process. And the organic process is exactly what Krishna defined for saying you should not get attached to sense objects. Do the reverse, and do it for, in this case, for meditation, by basically being in touch with things that are meditation related. Reading books on great yogis, or things like simple things like talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, right? It may not have meditation centric, but because it's spiritually oriented, there's a lot of things that are in it which will actually goad you towards meditation. And when your mind starts to meditate, then you won't have that, you won't have that uncertainty whether it's important or not. Basically you'll start to have more and more conviction that is very important for me. So having said all that, I think we are right at the tail end of it, and in fact, perfect timing. We got only a couple of minutes, Nitinji, and I am ready for any questions. I think I'm done. Any feedback? I'm curious if people have any feedback on what's happened so far.
Thank you very much, Sundarji, for a very interesting session. One of the questions we have received is, are there any stepwise exercises towards pratyahara process?
So see, I deliberately didn't go into any of the methodologies. If you noticed here, one thing I have not done is mentioned any kind of meditative practice or talked about an actual practical meditative session, because we are not there yet. Because see, where I'm going with all this is I want to establish the groundwork, the architecture of the psychology or the philosophy of the whole meditative process, because I think that's very important. Because see, if you just jump into meditation without understanding that it only happens when you have conviction that is very, very important, it's not going to work, right? I mean, you're going to find it unsatisfactory. You'll just drop off, right? So that's why I want to establish the fundamentals. Once you understand that, well, like Acharya says, unless you ascribe that importance to this process, you're not going to get it. And what is interesting is when you interact with a yogi, like I mentioned in the last session, of the highest class we were lucky to have in our college days, those things automatically transfer. Meaning, a yogi like Ramana Maharshi, or in my case, my mentor, they're not going to talk about, oh, I have to give, how to make sure that you understand him. No, they're not going to say anything. Just being in the presence, what happens is you actually get the, it sort of it imbibes in you. Like you already know, like you being in the presence, it's very, very important, because they have given up their life. They've stayed single. They're Naistika Brahmachari or a sannyasi, and they're dedicated this whole life to that. So they don't have to even say that it's important. It's understood, right? It's just like, in the case of a person who is playing IPL or a highest level, you don't have to go and tell them, make sure your bat is polished and you've got abdomen guards and you got the right kind of pads. All that is automatically done for them, right? They know all those kind of ground rules. So what I'm trying to emphasize is, unless the importance aspect comes to you, and that cannot be like, somebody cannot just teach you like reading books and all. It has to be imbibed in you. Till that time, meditation is not going to happen. So, I mean, there's like in Shankara says, I think in the Yoga Taradu, there are 94,000 or 84,000 techniques. I don't know whether, anybody can validate, but we all know that just by looking at what is there in the marketplace right now. You've got TM, you've got art of living, you've got inner engineering, you've got mindfulness, and just in the Buddhist school around, there is like hundreds and hundreds of variations. So sorry, I think I'm digressing. So what was the question again? Nitinji?
No, it was simply that are there any stepwise exercises towards pratyahara process?
Yes. And interestingly, I'll tell you, one of them was actually, I signed up for a yoga classes by something called HA Build or HA Yoga. So there's a guy who's an IIT graduate. He teaches Saurabh, I think Saurabh Rashtra, Saurabh somebody. But anyway, what I'm saying is, even he, in the middle of yoga teaching, has got a 5-minute routine, and I thought was very good. I mean, all it is basically, systematically, practicing, starting with deep breathing, and then observing any particular thing. Like in the case of Harari, he's talking about breath and things like that. But to time box it, meaning, so the technique would be, you'll never be able to get meditation if you say, I'm going to sit down for an hour. No, it's not going to happen. But if you say, in the next 10 minutes, whatever be the distraction, it can be anything, right? I may be losing my job after 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. But right now, in these 10 minutes, let me focus on this. Then it'll work. If you are able to time box, it'll work. If you try to be open-ended, no, it's never going to work. So if you time box to 5 or 10 minutes, that's what I like. If I find the thing, I'll send the details to you, Nitinji. So if you time box 10 minutes and then say that in these 10 minutes, I'm nobody. I'm not whatever, project manager or whatever. I'm not husband, wife, whatever. I'm not any of those. I do not have anything to achieve or desire in these 10 minutes. I mean, the 11th minute, I may run and maybe make a stock trade, right? Maybe I'm doing a stock trading. I want to run and do a buying of NVIDIA or something, in the US context, but in India, there's probably other things, right? I'm saying you go and you got to jump in and buy an ETF this very minute. Yes, on the 11th minute, but 10 minutes, give me, so you tell your mind that for the 10 minutes, I don't have, I'm not interested in anything new. I don't want to achieve anything. I am not my usual self, meaning I am not the project manager or the husband or wife or whatever, the eldest son eking out a living, whatever, right? If you do that and you practice any technique, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you honestly, anything that appeals to you, because what Patanjali says is, he's not prescriptive. He says whatever appeals to you. In fact, if you look in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras about what object to meditate on, Patanjali leaves it completely open. He says, whatever appeals to you. He's not prescriptive. So that's the thing. Time boxing, I think the main thing is time boxing, and then mentally making an assertion that for the next 10 minutes, I am not anybody. I'm not I'm not the husband, son, wife, whatever, and I don't have anything to achieve. But if you tell the mind after the 11th minute, yes, let's get to everything we want to do, then it'll listen. So that's really, I think that's really the focus. Sorry, I mean, it's a little lengthy, but hopefully that explains, right?
Thank you, Sundarji. I will just take one final question. I'll combine two questions so that you can answer them together. One is meditation equates to Vedanta Dhyanam? Second is, can you talk a little about Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi? How can we go to these stages?
Okay, yeah. So, see, my whole talk has been, like I mentioned, differentiating from the secular kind of meditation. Everything I talked about today is all the Vedantic meditation. So what is by Vedantic meditation? I mean the one that is represented in the Gita and the Upaniṣhads. Yes, completely. Whatever I talked about is the Vedantic meditation. And so, so that's the first question. The second part of it is Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Yes, at this stage, we are not there yet. I mean, like I briefly mentioned it last time, but in a future session, that's where we are going. So see, if you think about it, Nitinji, this session was about what is common between Arjuna and Harari, right? And difficulty in meditation, right? So the next session would be who does not have Arjuna's problem. Obviously, not everybody has Arjuna's problem, right? And those people, like the questioner asked, is exactly those people who are in that space. Those who are in Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi are exactly those people. The analogy I use is you got training wheels in the first 4 stages, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pratyahara, all that, right? But in the Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, you don't have any training wheels, you don't have any props, you don't have any mantras. You can't be doing mantras and be in dhyana. You see what I'm saying? You lose the training wheels. You lose the training wheels, and you're sort of in a self-driving mode, and that's why I brought the Tesla analogy. You're pretty much in a self-driving mode in Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, and that's what we'll be covering. Absolutely, and thanks for them who has asked the question. Yeah, that's where we'll be going. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sundarji, for an excellent session, and I'm sure that all our audience have deeply benefited from it. So I'm very thankful to you for this session. Hope we can see you more, sharing more insights on meditation and other topics in future sessions as well. So on behalf of all the audience and Indica Moksha, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nitya. I want to mention one thing. Like I mentioned, I already have 2 topics sort of lined up. One is the counter question to who does not have Arjuna's problem, right? So that's what I'm saying, that those who do not need training wheels or being able to do the Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, which is basically in Yoga Sutras called Samyama, right? you're able to gravitate to that. That is one session. The last one is basically, the role of grace in the whole scheme of things. And basically tying into the other question asked about the Vedantic thing, tying into the Mundaka Upanishads. I think I mentioned to you once, the commentary on the Mundaka Upanishad basically ties all this together beautifully. So that's really the gist of it. Thank you. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And I'm really thankful that so many people were able to take time off. As you know, both in India and here, you're coming off the holiday season, right? So people have got so many things to do, and to be able to come over to a session, it's not exactly like watching the movie or anything like that, right? It's more serious. So but to be able to contribute to that, it's fantastic. I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to speak to all of you. And I'll send you the slide decks, Nitinji, and you can, and with the link so that you can post it in the description of the video if people who are interested. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sundarji.
Thanks.
Viewers, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for updates about our upcoming sessions. With this, let me conclude the session with a prayer. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Thank you all.